Hearthstone Global Games is an epic country versus country tournament where teams of 4 card slingers each clash for national pride.
But in the end, the UK always wins.
Wait, everybody knows it's Germany always wins.
Aren't you Polish?
Is winning all that matters?
It's all about fun and getting along with your teammates.
That's easy when their skills are legendary.
Or in this case, you have an ace player who will never let you down.
So we're gonna see the same old archetypes then?
No, every team needs to bring all 9 classes.
So we're gonna see Hunter?
I wonder.
So let's recap. It's 4 regions, 48 countries, but
only one winner.
Get ready
for the Hearthstone
Global Games.
Hello everyone and welcome to another day of the Hearthstone Global Games. I'm Raven and joining me, of course, is no one other than Sotol. How are you doing today? How did you like yesterday?
Doing fantastic, yeah. Yesterday was great. Got a lot of exposure to a lot of countries and representatives from those countries that I wasn't particularly familiar with outside of the research that we've been scrambling to do on some of these guys. So that was a great experience for me just to get exposed to a bunch more Hearthstone communities, which is well within the spirit of what we're trying to do with the Hearthstone Global Games. But now, on day 2 of week 2, there's a few of the heavy hitters re-entering the fray from week 1.
Yeah, and as you said, we are in week 2 of a 10-week stage. This is going to be stage 1. There's 8 groups of 6 teams each. They're going to play a 10-week round robin. That means 48 countries total, and within their group, they're going to play all their teams in there at least at once, and then we're going to see who the top cut is and who's going to be moving on.
Exactly, and that will move us on to stage 2, which, in case that wasn't enough Hearthstone action for you, we run it all back yet again with a smaller round robin stage, 6 groups of 4. The top teams from that stage will then advance to stage 3, where we throw them into a 16-team single elimination, the top 4 of which will all advance to our live LAN finals.
Yeah, that's going to be awesome when we get the final 4 teams. They're going to be joining us in a location to actually play it out live. So it's going to be great, as we mentioned yesterday, to see potentially teams from just all around the world join us for one event, top 4, see who's the best in the world.
Yeah, it's the best thing about, any international event, not just in Hearthstone, whatever community you're a part of, when there is this kind of huge gathering, bringing together the international smorgasbord of people from all around the world. That is one of the most fun experiences to be a part of, and I'm sure Hearthstone Global Games will be no different. Yeah,
and we've got, as we said earlier, tons of groups and tons of teams that are going to be playing out. We can check out where they line up so far this far into the tournament. So we see Group A with Bulgaria, Brazil, and Sweden in the top cut there, and then China, Indonesia, and Switzerland, bringing up the bottom a little bit there, and that's all after 1 match each they've played out.
Yeah, no one got blown out in any of their opening round games as well. All 3 2s and 3 1s, as you can see there from the game record, and the game record is very important because there's a good chance that teams' match records will be tied in at least a couple of spots by the end of the groups. That game record will then serve as a tiebreaker. But Group B now, I think this is one of the groups where you did just start to see the cream rising to the top, as much as it pains me to say it after our first round of games. Nearly been completed in Group B. Netherlands and the United States, definitely the 2 favorites for that group, picking up early victories. United Kingdom, unfortunately, despite all our might and majesty, are propping up the group.
Yeah, it's only week 1, so I'm sure we'll pick it up a little bit. But moving on to Group C, Argentina, Russia, and New Zealand going to be at the top cut there, and Austria, Australia, and Spain bringing up the rear. A couple of 0-3s in that group as well. So Argentina and Russia looking very strong with 0 game losses to their name.
Yeah, and in Group D, South Korea, of course, Ravens pick for the tournament. Middling results so far, one of the few countries to have played twice already. Picked up a win in week 1, but week 2, not so much success, dropping back down to a 1-1 record, and their game record taking a hit from that 3-0 defeat as well.
Yeah, definitely rough for those guys. Then we see Greece at the bottom there with a loss. They lost to South Korea in week 1, but they're going to be playing today as well, so they're going to be looking to really push forward and actually get a win to get them points on the board. Just to remind you as well, some of the groups look a bit wonky in terms of games played. At the end of this, they're all going to have played the same amount of matches, going to be played every other team once. Group E with Japan and Norway rocking the top there, with Israel and Finland on the bottom, and Italy and Chile still to play.
Yeah, very interesting group for me, that one. Really could be anyone's to take. No one really standing out as a massive powerhouse in that group, but Canada picked up their win over France as the only game that's been played so far in Group F. Kazakhstan, of course, with Neyman representing them as one of their highest profile players. Denmark, Belgium, and Malaysia rounding out that group.
Yeah, looking forward to seeing more matches from that group as we move on throughout the tournament as well. We're looking forward to see the Malaysian team play. And moving on to Group G, we have Turkey and Taiwan at the top. We saw Turkey in a very dominant performance versus Vietnam yesterday, 3-0, and their play was very, very solid, I must say.
It was, yeah, they surprised me just a little bit. But Group H, Czech Republic and Ukraine, again, two of the big teams in this entire tournament. The one surprise there, Germany picking up an opening loss, but that was just by merit of the fact that they played against Ukraine, and one of those fantastic teams was going to have to pick up a round one loss. I'm sure Germany will be back with a vengeance in the coming weeks.
Yeah, and as we move on to the next few weeks, we're really starting to see the groups shape out now. Some of the groups have nearly every single team played so far. There's only, say, one more match to pick up. And, as we mentioned, the actual game score for these teams is very important for tiebreakers. But we can check out what we've got coming up for you guys today. It's going to be kicking off the day with Italy versus Norway, and then Greece looking to get that point on the board is going to be going up against Hungary after that.
Yeah, and then Ukraine are re-entering the fray. Ukraine, such a powerhouse team. Dr. Hippie, Kalento, and Nairi are all representing that team. Mexico versus Poland coming up fourth. And then I don't think I'd be doing it a disservice to any of the other matches to call our fifth and final game the main event. It's Netherlands versus the United States. The US, of course, the conquerors of the United Kingdom in week one, but now they have the might of Tice and company to come up against.
Yeah, going to be an important match, actually, because that's one of the very hard matches in the group for both teams, and those are the two teams that are at the top of the group as well. Yep. So whoever wins takes a very nice step forward. But yeah, kicking off the start here, we've got Italy versus Norway coming up soon. And, Norway, on paper, look absolutely fantastic, right? We saw them play last week as well, and with players like, Diggen, Zaires, Hunteres, Zorkthor, we saw great things from all these guys, actually.
Yeah, definitely an impressive team. Not a level of power you would associate with Norway, just if you were, assessing the country's level of competition in other events. But in Hearthstone, they've just got a great team put together. Zirez, very accomplished ladder player. Diggen with HCT experience. Zorkthar with a lot of prestige behind him as well. Italy, on the other hand, as you now see some shots of beautiful Rome. Pretty much an unknown entity to me. Turner was the one player that I had experience with before coming into this. The other three players I really did have to try and dig out some information on. So I think Norway will go into this one as the favorites, and it's Italy to try and come up with the upset.
Yeah, but yesterday, as you mentioned, was a day of upsets with a lot of the lesser-known teams really pulling it out of the bag and showing how good they actually are in Hearthstone and as a team as well, which is very, very important. But all the teams here can play every single game with full communication with the whole team as well, although there will only be one player piloting the deck at any given time. So that's definitely been fun to see the impact these rules have had, over the course of the games we've cast so far.
Yeah, I mean, even just in the players' decisions as to whether they want to group up and play in the same location or just communicate in voice over IP, we've seen pretty much a 50-50 split on that decision so far, and now you see the lineups and the format laid out in front of you for the game ahead of us, Italy versus Norway.
Yeah, and we can see now in terms of how this will work, if you're not aware, it's effectively a best of 5 between the teams, so every single player will play the player opposite them, and they get to pick one of their 2 classes to play, and then once the team has got to 3 wins, that team wins the whole series. There is a chance that the number 4 pick here does not have to play if it's a 3-0, or if it's a 2-2, then one player is designated the ace player and gets to play again with a deck they did not play in their first game. So a lot of intricacies we've been seeing in terms of tactics and class choices, class pairings and deck pairings as well, in terms of how that works, in terms of the structure of what they think their opponent's going to bring.
Yeah, absolutely. I think week 1, we just saw people trying to figure the meta out. It was brand new. No one even really knew what the strongest decks were going to be. Yesterday, at the start of week 2, we've seen much more, strategic thinking as to which classes you pair together, which of your 2 you're picking to go into the matchups against your opposing 2. And now you see that information revealed for Snowman versus Zorkthar. Snowman has chosen to go with the Rogue, eliminating his own Druid, and Zorkthar has gone for Shaman, eliminating his own Warrior.
Yeah, again, we've seen so much variety of decks come out from all these players. You know, yesterday, for example, we saw Elemental Mage being played as one of the decks. And again, you know, it's probably not as crazy as week 1 because that was literally days after the expansion and the standard rotation happened. But even now, I mean, we were talking about, you know, not just before we actually went live, how quickly even within archetypes, deck lists are even changing. You know, it feels like every couple of hours I look at Twitter and someone's come out, oh, just hit rank 1 legend with this. And you're like, oh, that's not what I was playing 2 hours ago. Like, oh, okay, now I try this, and then we try this. Like, the constant evolution is actually crazy.
Yeah, it feels like we're getting to the point in the meta now where, you know, the archetypes that are going to eventually be strong are fairly well established. You know, your mid-rangey paladins, your quest warrior, your rogue of both quest and miracle variety. But, as you mentioned, those individual lists are just changing on a day-by-day basis as to what is the most powerful setup.
Yeah, and we saw the players just getting ready there. Just to remind you, Snowman is being joined by one of the players from his team, I have no doubt. But everyone will be in communication with each other. It's not 2v1, as some of you guys in Twitch chat like to pretend, and maybe even try and wind us up with.
They're just going to do that now to troll you.
Of course they are.
The more you bring it up, the more of a copy pasta it's going to become.
We're here to inform and educate. Okay.
Well, one of us is.
Yes, all. Anyway, moving on, it's going to be Snowman versus Zogthar, as we said. And, you know, for Snowman, who's the highest HCT point earner in Italy with 45 total points. That's a good amount, actually. And it also means that he is effectively the anchor for the team in terms of how he got on there.
I had a significant amount of internal turmoil coming into this match as to whether I was going to make any Frozen references during this. And thank you, TJ. You have now saved me. I do not have to do it. You have done the bad thing, so none of us have to. Snowman, in fact, does not want to build a snowman.
Key information, whereas Zogthar was number 2 in Norway in terms of HT points, with a significant amount less than Snowman, actually, only 32. So already, we were talking about players we might not have heard much from in terms of actually playing in majors or big performances like that. But that does not mean these players are messing around at all. Already, over 10 points difference between these players in HCT.
Yeah, this is one of the things that you really do have to realize about the Hearthstone scene is that there are a lot of players who play in all these major events, and they're getting consistently 16 to 32 finishes in 256-man tournaments. That's not good enough to get you recognition from the scene as a whole. That doesn't put you in the spotlight, but it does show an incredible level of skill and an incredible level of consistency. And there are dozens and dozens of players in that kind of bracket in this tournament that we just haven't heard of yet, that are very, very accomplished players now having an opportunity to represent their countries.
Yeah, also as well, just ladder grinders, open cup grinders as well. Exactly. All these players, for example, Sintalol is a huge open cup grinder when he came into last year in HCT as well. And he pretty much just didn't win anything in majors or anything like that. He just got all these points through open cup. And, it just goes to show that there are multiple ways to qualify, but let's talk less about that, more about this now as we get into game 1 of the day. Snowman versus Zogthar. It's going to be Snowman on the Quest Rogue, as we can see. And Zogthar looking like potentially an aggressive Shaman list here with the Hammer of Twilight.
Yeah, now we have revealed the information that this is an aggressive Shaman. Of course, we have no knowledge of the deck lists in this tournament. The opposing players have no knowledge of the deck lists in the tournament. Big difference between this and HCT, where the deck lists are public on both sides. You guys can see them playing at home. We know the deck lists, the opposing players know the deck lists. So now we know this is an aggressive Shaman from Zogthar. He's definitely got the better of the pick here, even before Italy got to make their choice. I would imagine that is, an aggressive Druid or a very, very slow ramp Druid from Snowman. So whichever one he picked, this or this Rogue, the aggressive Shaman was going to have a good matchups. This is a smart pick from Norway and Zogthar. The aggressive Shaman was likely to be favored no matter which deck it went up against.
Yeah, it's one of the few controlling factors you have where when you see the classes and know the rough archetypes, you can already make a bit of a spot decision there. And see the old Firefly getting played first, which is going to be nice. Card we've talked about a lot in this tournament, actually, because it's just played so commonly. It's really going to help out with the Flame Tongue Totem, for example, and just sticking stuff to the board. And against Quest Rogue, if anything, it does stay on the board on Snowman's side. It's probably going to get cleaned up by these Fireflies.
Yes, and I imagine this is just going to be a totem turn from Zorkthar because he can immediately charge his patches that I imagine is in there with the Bloodsail Corsair alongside the Flametongue totem next turn.
Yep.
Just make sure he gets immediate double value out of it, but let's take a look over the other side of the board and talk about the elephant in the room, which is Quest Rogue, and a Quest Rogue that has drawn Shadow Step in its opening hand, which I don't know if there's data on this out there yet. You know, there's a lot of kind of analyst websites and Twitter accounts out there these days that do great work in terms of evaluating the win rate, not just of decks, but of specific situations, right? Like, how often do you win when you play South Sea Captain on 3 in Pirate Warrior, for example? I would love to know the win rate of Quest Rogue when you have Shadow Step in your opening hand, because I imagine it is enormous.
Or maybe more specifically Shadow Step and a minion.
Well, there's a fairly good chance there
Shadow
is
Step, Shadow
a
Step,
minion.
Quest, Vanish.
Yeah, sure.
That might be a problem. But yeah, you know, I'm only messing with you. I completely agree. And now with 2 deck hands, when you get a 2-of in your hand this early, that just makes it so much easier. One of the additional procs, if he's going to go for the deck hand, means that that's just free. You don't even need a bounce effect because you just have 2 of them already. It's kind of crazy.
There is a concern with deck hand and with Swashbuckler as well, where those are nice cards to activate the quest with, you know, Swashbuckler in particular, because it's resource generation as you bounce it. But one of the most powerful things you can do with this deck is play South Sea Deckhand, or, you know, to a lesser extent, the other Pirate Swashbuckler after you've activated your quest, because then you pull patches as a 5/5 charger from your deck. So much more explosive turn. So as this deck is getting more and more refined, people's play with this deck is getting more and more refined. We're seeing players try to hold on to their first Pirate until after they're activating the quest.
Also, as well, just the fact that charges in general, the deck hands have charge.
Yes,
so again,
exactly. Right.
You know, as well as the patches interaction, much more powerful when you're charging a 5/5 than a 2/1, just to, you know, bounce it back into hand and carry on again.
You don't say. 1 mana charging 5/5s are good, huh?
So I've heard.
Yeah.
I'm not one to play Quest Rogue myself, but so I've heard. I'm of the receiving end of them, and it is definitely almost game a lot of the time when the quest is played out under a safe circumstance. You know, the road doesn't die the following turn.
Yeah.
And I've seen turns like deck hand with patches, ball, and you're just like, oh, I guess I lose. You know, and that's what you mean about the charges, right?
That's
it's just so much more powerful.
Not even enough ambition, Raven. It's South Sea Deckhand plus summoning patches plus another charger, prep vanish, and then kill you. That's just 30. Yeah. Wow. What a deck.
What a deck indeed. Glad we're not doing that from the New Zealand perspective. That could sound a little bit different, but with Flametongue Totem now, you're getting the value down. The Totem does mean that it's not going to get instant, like the Flametongue value from patches, but still, it's a lot of pressure, and this is one of the ways you can punish this style of rogue.
Yep.
You just kill them before they do anything anyway.
Well, that is the quest. That's all the resources that he needs anyway, but still not a automatic decision because Deckhand is a fairly weak minion to bounce in the first place and because he pulls that patches, but now he's reaching the point in the game where there's so much pressure staring him down, especially now he's lost that dagger charge, which is just a net loss to his board control as well, that maybe that patches coming out as a 1/1 now is actually just a necessary evil in terms of controlling the board.
Yeah, you can actually just pick off the Totem, for example, with it. All the other patches, but you probably go with the Totem here. Unless you're thinking about Vanish later on, you don't want to leave patches in hand after that. Also, as well, most importantly, what do you think of I think this is actually a hoodie that Zorkthar's wearing, but it looks like it could be a cardigan-style pattern. So what do you think of that, Sal?
It is a fake pretender to the cardigan throw.
Okay.
Yeah.
You're a purist.
I am.
Not a surprise at all, if I had to guess. So the Flametongue Totem's going to get cleared up by this deckhand, and now we'll see what the grand plan is. If we see a Shadow Step, yeah, we do, okay. Yeah, if we see the Shadow Step, then it's pretty much Italy committing to this deckhand as the proccing minion for the quest.
Yeah, that is the quest complete, I believe, next turn if he wants it. Deckhand Ferryman would put 2 more deckhands back in hand, and then he'd have 2 mana remaining to play them both back out again. But not a lot of value to charging a deckhand a bunch of times when there's a 5/5 taunt in the way. So might just need a little bit of extra planning here. Now there is a 5/5 on the board. That Glacial Shard is looking quite promising as well.
Yeah, combined with the Igneous Elemental now that's been drawn, although the main point of Igneous Elemental is that you get the double Flame Elementals, but you know, don't need them to proc the quest, but still having just the minions on board is nice. It still generates potentially 1 mana 5/5s later in the game, but yeah, I think the Glacial Shard to freeze out the 5/5 is going to be very important here.
It's like he's just going to try and rush this out. Does have the Vanish, so if he can load up the quest, get this part of the game done, He has the Vanish to buy a turn later on, and then if he still has enough health remaining at the end of that, he's going to go Glacial Shard instead. Yeah, this makes sense. Just bounce it once, play the Shard. Now he has Deckhand with the quest potentially next turn, can play 2 Deckhands for 1 mana and coin out the quest, so in decent shape.
Yeah, one of the key cards as well, or like back-breaking cards, I would say, when you're against Quest Rogue is Prep. Prep Vanish is insane, Prep Quest is insane as well, as it opens up more minions to be played on that turn that the quest is live. So if Italy draw into a Prep very soon, this could help them out quite dramatically. Is it going to be a Stone Tusk Boar for this turn, though? Good to have the charges available.
It is, and 2 charging 5/5s this turn is definitely going to help. They've held on to that coin now, and that is quest complete. At 4 after 4, 5 mana Crystal Core goes into the hand, so Coin Crystal can now charge 5/5s. And this is essentially 3 charging 5/5s because Norway chose to disrespect the 2/3 on the board. They, of course, didn't have the knowledge that the second deckhand was in hand. So still, you know, a relative big ask for Italy to be able to proc the quest and coin the quest that turn. Just took the risk with the hand they have, Lava Burst and Jade Lightning, to end the game as quickly as possible. But that has come back to bite them just a little bit. Now there's that extra 5/5 charger. And smart from Italy as well. This is something that you do kind of pick up step by step as you play along with this deck, is that they traded off the minion with the lowest value to return to their hand. The 2 mana Gadgets and Ferryman, if they pick up another bounce effect, they're not going to want to bounce the Ferryman, they're going to want to bounce these charging minions instead, so they chose to kill off the lowest value minion.
Yeah, Firefly, a bit of a dud draw here for Norway, because you can see the plan already, as you mentioned, right? You know, I'll leave the minions up and just kill him before it happens. Yeah. You know, it happened a little bit too quick for Norway and Zokthar here, but there's still Lava Burst, Jade Lightning available, plus the swing from the weapon's going to generate a minion on board as well. Just has to work out exactly how he needs to put this together, and what he needs to draw to get the win. So looking at probably a Lightning Bolt at some point for next turn. We might even see just Jade Lightning Hero Power, or Jade Lightning Firefly and Flame Elemental to just put more stuff on the board. Yeah. Just something to pile on pressure and make Snowman consider trading for a turn.
Yeah, if they Jade Lightning face this turn and then swing everything to face, generate the extra token on board, and you know, dunk that damage in, then if they draw damage on the next turn, that is just going to be lethal. And I imagine from this position, the fight for board control when your opponent has a bunch of 1 mana 5/5s and 2 mana cards that generate 2 5/5s, one of which is a taunt, I think you have to accept that your fight for board control is over at this point. But Norway disagree. They're going to try and keep this going for an extra turn or 2.
Or just get enough minions that he actually pushes the damage through minions.
That's fair.
And can actually, because it can still Jade Lightning and Lava Burst next turn. So that's still going to be 9 available. So no spell damage totem, and can't even go for 1 next turn. But this is still a reasonable board here.
Youthful Brew pickup means that they can push 15 damage this turn, 16 with the hero power as well. That is not quite good enough. So it's looking like if they vanish this turn, can they kill on the next turn? Though they won't have mana available to get the dagger up and play all the charges and bounce them.
They won't need to, right? They can push 5 damage this turn.
Oh, they can push 5 right now.
You put them to 15 this turn, next turn you win after
right.
Vanish. So I think that's going to be the play for Snowman here. It's pretty much the only play, as when your opponent does this style, you know those cards in hand is at least 1 is burst, right? You know, at least 1, because you just wouldn't completely ignore everything if you could have had any other play here. So that's going to be the play, and now it's going to be all on a, well, that's just game unless it's a taunt rolled, right? Oh no, because the Brewmaster is just going to pile through everything anyway.
Jade Lightning pickup means if they had committed to face on the previous turn with everything and not died, which of course is a risk that they are facing as well if they don't trade with any of the minions.
They are facing.
Yes,
I like it.
Exactly. Then that Jade Lightning could have actually just ended the game alongside the Lava Burst, but now Zokthar is just going to have to commit to trying to end this over 2 turns, has more than enough burst to cover this. But now Dagger Up is 2 mana, the 2 deckhands make 4, Youthful Brewmaster is 6, and then another charger would be 7, even if the boar wasn't there.
Yeah, I was going to say, with the boar, it just closes this out very, very easily, very manageable. And you know, very interesting play from Zokthar there. I genuinely thought, because the start has been so minion heavy from the Shaman, the odds on you drawing burn so high. Right. Like, so high. We've not seen Lightning Bolts. I don't know what's in the deck, but still another Lava Burst, another Jade Lightning that we saw. Lightning Bolts as well, but it wasn't enough, and the Vanish We've talked about Vanish a lot in this deck,
Yeah.
and it looks like an odd pick at first glance, but it definitely gets the work done as Italy take the first game against Norway, so coming strong out the gate here.
Yeah, genuinely Vanish now feels like one of the strongest cards in the deck to me. You know, if you're playing Wisps, it's just an automatic quest completion with the Wisps themselves on turn 6 if it gets that far. It's an extra turn in the late game where an extra turn is pretty much all you're looking for, and sometimes it's just a lethal setup. You know, when you've got, even especially strong against things like Freeze Mage, where you have charges on the board, they get frozen, you can just vanish them back to your hand and charge them again. Well, it just serves as an extra bounce effect in that regard.
Yeah, I think as well, we saw Vanish in its, you know, it was strong, obviously, to get the win, but we saw it in its worst state against the Shaman there because they had a lot of low drop minions they could play. Like, imagine if that was a heavier board, you know, then you could just play one more minion as the Shaman. You're like, oh, well, he plays 5, I play 1, I lose because all his are 5/5. So even the power of just knocking back a more control-y style deck and the mana and the amount of mana in that hand is incredible. But moving on to game 2.
Steady yourself, Raven.
Woo! Double Hunter. Twice as much fun. This was a given, though, in my opinion. Because I believe that Diggen could not play Mage into Hunter Priest.
No.
You just can't. Like, Hunter, we've seen Hunters with Flare, but Hunter in general just does good versus Freeze Mage. It's a pretty reasonable deck. The game we saw yesterday from New Zealand actually ran Flare, but didn't really need it. It did win the game, but
the game would have ended without it. Yeah,
exactly.
Sure,
so didn't need it. So Hunter's a good matchup versus Freeze Mage being the most popular style of Mage. And then the other one is Priest, which we just laugh at how crazily bad that matchup can be.
Yeah, my question is the other way, though. You said this was a given, that we're seeing a Hunter mirror, but how about the Priest pick from Italy? Because the Priest would either go up against Hunter, or it would go up against, theoretically, Freeze Mage, where it has a strong matchup either side.
Yeah, I think Priest can struggle a bit versus Hunter.
You think everything struggles against Hunter?
Well, no, I don't. I think Taunt Warrior is actually good against Hunter,
okay.
believe it or not.
Fair.
But yeah, I think the Priest feels a bit more risky as well, and there's still a chance that they might pick. I don't know. I wouldn't like to play Priest in Hunter.
It will depend on the Priest build. I think if you have a good Pyro build, then that does a lot better against Hunter, just because of how effectively it picks apart the early game. Dragon Priest can just be a little slow to start up and get punished by a quick Hunter start.
Oh, Yogmoth streams very regularly on Twitch. Go and check him out. Yeah, 10,000 followers. Sick. Is that pretty good? I'm guessing he streams in Italian.
I do not have that information.
Okay, I'm going to roll the dice and say it's Italian.
Sure.
But yeah, looking good. We know Diggen from the HT Winter Championship. Super cool guy and a very smart, intelligent player. We'll see if he can. How good is it, Hunter, at this point? Because that's going to be the key. Hunter mirrors as well. The builds are going to be very, very important here because we've talked a lot about how you actually build Hunter, because there's a million different ways, believe it or not. It's not just you throw the Hunter cards in and hope. You can actually build it for a lot of late game control. You can build the Hyena combos with Unleash. Some decks don't even play Unleash for a start. So there's so many ways this can go. It's going to be very important. Or we could see one player draw the early start and just snowball, and the other player doesn't, which also can be difficult.
Yeah, one of the interesting things on the fact sheet there that I actually dug up when I was researching this team is the Italian team are actually very, very used to and comfortable with each other. They all represent the same team anyway. It's just worked out in the way that this entire squad of players that are probably used to labbing out and practicing together have ended up as the Italian team. So if that gives them any kind of advantage just in terms of communication, probably just have a closer synergy in terms of ideas of what they think is strong or not, because they've tested it all together in the first place, whereas there might be a bit more conflict between some of the other teams on opinions as to which decks to bring. Speaking of things that are strong, Alley Cat Scavenging Hyena opening generally can be game-winning.
Yep, against a lot of decks, and also against Hunter, because if it grows like that one stage past 3, doing 4 is very difficult unless you roll exactly Huffer on an animal companion, or this Crackling Razormaw could get some work done as well. But that is, you know, the second you miss the adapt onto Poisonous or plus attack, whatever's needed, you probably just lose, actually. You know, it can be that tough, actually. So instead, this is going to be rough. Italy's opening hand is
that's so big.
Oh, never mind, yeah.
I was about to say, the saving grace here for Italy was that they were going first, but going first means nothing if you don't hit your 1-drop. You want to go first in the Hunter mirror because it gives you the initiative to do things like turn 1 Alley Cat, turn 2 Scavenging Hyena. If you don't hit your 1-drop, you essentially then just pass that initiative back to your opponent to do the same thing back to you.
Yeah, and I think there are very sort of rigid responses to openings like this based on what Diggen's got. I think he almost has to Alley Cat coin Macaw, or Macaw coin Alley Cat, actually, in terms of ordering.
What about just coin Grandma?
It just gets blown out by Razormaw, though.
Does it?
It can be just double traded, right? One procs to Razormaw, the other one you're probably going to get +1/+1, +3 attack, poisonous, you know.
But then, you know, in that situation, your opponent who was going first has a 3-2 on the board against nothing on turn 2. That's not really a blowout, right? They've just kept that little bit of initiative that they had.
Sure, I think it's just with the follow-up of what Hyena means that, well, that just dies to the Razormaw, and Hyena's very key.
Sure.
So
makes sense.
I think this gives you the highest chance to make something happen next turn and beat the board down, because Hunter will just run away with it, and we can see from Yawgmoth that actually this Direwolf does very little except represent a 2/2 on board.
Yes.
Can push for extra damage, but again, battling for the board is very important because Hunter is generally a snowball deck, but also can actually just, the second you lose out in the mirror, it's even harder.
Yes, I do want to go back to the one-drop dilemma for Team Italy is that they actually mulliganed away a Crackling Razormaw from their opening hand, I believe, which is the most powerful early game card on average in the Hunter deck. It can just snowball the board enormously if you land it on a one-drop. So that Alley Cat that came out as the very last draw on turn 1, that might have looked like a lucky draw, but they fully maximized their chances of getting a one-drop. They recognized how important that was, and it, is a justified reward for that decision.
It's going to be interesting this play here, because if you develop the Direwolf this turn, which, it means that anything that gets played next turn, you have Unleash for.
Yes.
With probably Direwolf buff, probably, because this would need either a Direwolf response or a Razormaw to be able to deal with it. So probably feeling pretty good with this Direwolf on board here for Italy.
Norway now just considering how much they fear this Direwolf, because obviously they can contest it directly with Scavenging Hyena, but Scavenging Hyena is just such a high resource card for you. It's such a huge threat, especially in the Hunter mirror. Choosing just to play out the Grandmother here, and now, as you said, this is a pretty solid value Unleash the Hounds. Pop open the Grandma with the Direwolf and then use the 2 Unleash Dogs to clear the remainder of the board. Yeah,
I like it. You actually can clear off, leave the Direwolf alive. Yep. And more importantly, with double Houndmaster, you want a Beast alive next turn.
Exactly.
And again, unless there's Bow or Kill command on a 2/1, then, that Direwolf is actually going to live, and then suddenly the Houndmaster chain starts rolling. It's going to be looking very, very good here. Rat Pack just feels okay. It's probably going to get some work done, but again, not going to be enough on its own against the Houndmaster.
Yeah, the Houndmaster exchange now, wow, that is an Emerald Reaver, guys.
Okay, so with my in-depth knowledge of Hunter decks and development over this expansion,
hit me.
Emerald Reaver was played by like Nick Chipper, for example, in some of his like day 1 builds.
Okay,
but it was swiftly rotated out because it does 1 damage to each player. It's another 1-drop.
Yeah.
But I think it was very quickly decided that as soon as you're not playing Quest Hunter, the extra 1-drops, because that is an extra 1-drop. You have Fiery Bats, you have Alley Cats, you have the Macaws as well. That's already 6.
I know Emerald Reaver is Emerald Reaver a beast? I'm pretty sure it is.
Yes,
right?
it
is. But even with the beast tag, I would play Firefly in a heartbeat over Emerald Reaver.
Yes,
right?
exactly.
And Firefly still isn't good enough to make most of these decks. So it does seem like a strange decision.
There's arguments for it in Face Hunter.
Sure.
Because it's extra damage and it's a more aggressive 1-drop.
Yeah, poor man's Leponome in that regard,
sure.
right? Yeah.
So, but in this, with Houndmasters, this seems like at least at the moment, still a mid-range Hunter deck. Going to be the tracking from Diggin and Norway here. No play next turn. No, Kill Command is good. Because next turn there's still just Hyena Kill Command into High Main. Use Kill Command to actually control the board going forward, and then just use your 2 High Mains to win the game. The Hyena is more of a bait in terms of, well, if it lives, awesome. If you have to focus on killing it, then the High Mains are progressively more safer, and then Kill Commands are used to just kill the minions and just control the board.
No, I like it. That's the line I see as well. Using the Hyena similarly to how a lot of high-level players will use Questing Adventurer in Rogue in some matchups in the previous meta, where they will play it just as a disruption turn and say, you know what, you just have this for now. You take your whole turn dealing with my Questing Adventurer, and then I will just drop another big threat on the following turn after you haven't developed onto the board.
Yeah, and this is interesting to me as well, because this develops more beasts on the board for the Hyena, but the Hyena is always going to be killed this turn.
Yes.
Every single day of the week. If there's not an answer for it in hand, the Houndmaster kills it. Whereas you could have had a second kill command and just go High Main, double kill command, win, if you're that confident. Or, as I said earlier, kill command the opponent's High Main, and then suddenly the power's not enough to kill yours on the board.
Right, I mean, well, I was looking at like kill command this turn to clear the board, then next turn you play hyena kill command to leave the board potentially empty again.
Yep.
Then you have that big hyena threat that needs some dealing with, and then you potentially get a free turn of tempo to go into the high mains.
Just gives you more flexibility, whereas
Right.
this is like, well, my hyena's dead no matter what. I've gained 2 1-1s. What does that actually do for next turn? I don't know. We'll see how it plays out, though. It doesn't mean it is more aggressive options. It can whip in a hero power.
Houndmaster number 2 coming down. Italy getting both Houndmasters in the early game is definitely a big deal for them. It's one of the huge tempo cards. And now the kill command does do work here. It does allow a board clear if Norway will want it. But it's a board clear with no tempo, which is the problem, which means if there was a high main from Italy, then it's just first high main coming down against you every single time. And first high main, if there hasn't been a blowout early game, the game then resets, and the next big question is who lands first high main, because then there's a ton of initiative in that sense as well.
Yeah, it's going to be the kill command for the clear. There's no real other option. Just developing Rat Pack is not going to do it.
There is an option, and that's hit face for 3. You don't have to respect this Houndmaster.
You don't. It is not a beast. It does not gain all the additional benefits of being a beast. We've seen both Houndmasters anyway, of course. And yeah, I guess this is pretty reasonable.
But now, on the merit of there not being a high main in hand for Italy, it means that potentially Norway can get back into this. Animal Companion Kill Command is not a good-looking turn right now. The Macaw being picked up means we'll probably see Macaw Companion Hero Power instead. Gentle Megasaur is a sizable beast, but we're not going to be seeing too much Murloc synergy from this deck, I imagine.
No, it's going to be nice to contend their high mains, though, the first section at least, because they are 5/4s, the Gentle Megasaurs.
That's actually a very good point. Was there any merit here in skipping the 2 damage from the hero power in order to generate a 5 power minion on the board to be able to trade with a high main?
Well, you've seen both kill commands as well, right? So
no, you've seen one and the other one got burnt at tracking, which you have no knowledge of.
Sorry. Yeah, so you've seen one kill command at least, which probably this early in the game is enough. Megasaur's probably just not going to get killed that easily on the board at this point. Because imagine if this was Huffer. What does Huffer even do? What does Leok even do? Actually, at this point. Hey, maybe the Megasaur was pretty good there, actually. Unless there's Murlocs in the deck. Just pulls out Wally to Finger next turn off the top, and you're like, okay. Never mind, that Megasaur was sick off the Macaw.
Oh, that doesn't look too promising for Italy. This game right in the balance as well, so I think there was an attack that's been missed from the Houndmaster this turn already, so I hope that they can connect back to the game in good time. But either way, they've already missed pushing some damage, which would be a huge deal in the Hunter Mirror.
Yeah, absolutely huge. And something's going crazy here since Italy missed an attack. Diggin's turned into Rexar. It's all going crazy at this point. So it looks like there's some potential connection issue, and we'll get that checked out and see what's going on there. But even in this board state, at least, the high main, even... Oh, Norway's offline as well. Okay. The Houndmaster, sorry, couldn't really trade into the 1/1s anyway because it does nothing to a large extent. So yeah, that 4 damage to face. There are a lot of times in the Hunter Mirror that it can be close, but if you've edged out just that extra little step of damage, you can then start ignoring what your opponent's doing and becoming like the true aggressor,
right.
And then your opponent has to be defensive, or they'll lose through hero power and potentially kill commands.
Yeah, I mean, Norway were definitely behind in terms of board state, but the fact that their hand was high main, and they had just enough health to be protecting against the kill command, which was the one lone card in hand for Italy. A game definitely in the balance from my perspective. So an unfortunate disconnect. That rope there seemed to just go on forever at the end as we were waiting for potentially some kind of resolution. But
it's a life coach rope.
Yeah, life coach's
Twice
greatest fantasy, the never-ending rope.
Do you remember the days of Hearthstone when they didn't have the rope?
In friendly challenges, there was no rope.
Yep.
Yeah,
That was great.
Days.
10 minutes over a turn. Imagine how long that cast would take us. But,
especially if you were casting Monk, who actually genuinely took about 6 minutes per turn.
Yeah, that was we miss you, Monk. Start playing again now that there's a rope. But yeah, in terms of the Hunter builds as well, it was really interesting stuff coming out from those guys. We could see the extra 1-drops. Do you think there's even 1-drops cut? Because you've got to fit them in somewhere, right?
In terms of the Emerald Reaver?
Yeah, Reaver. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to say. I mean, he might be playing even a couple of extra 1-drops and then have Tolvir Wardens in there, for example, just making sure he has enough so that card always gives him value. I know the build that I favor, that I put together when I was getting frustrated with losing to the two decks that were only existing at the time was Quest Rogue and Quest Warrior, trying to find something that beat them both consistently. And, you know, you said that some Hunter builds can struggle against Warrior, so I wanted to make sure I had enough beef in there to be able to push through the Warriors, but also enough aggression to be able to beat up the Quest Rogues before they got anything silly done. So my solution to that was just a ton of 1-drops and then a ton of late game. Like I had Bittertide Hydras and high mains, Tolvir Wardens as well to keep myself high on gas. That was the build that I really like. I haven't seen too many Wardens being played in other people's decks so far.
No, the problem is as well, there's actually just a lot of good 5-drops.
Yes.
Knocking around, and although Warden does a great job of making your future draws a lot better as well, because, yeah, it draws you 2 1-drops that you can play, but also thins your deck out to actually make your draws even stronger going forward, is that it's a 3/5.
Yes.
And in Hunter, you kind of want the higher attack to
I
kick
agree.
in there. So although it's a little bit slow in the general Hunter lists, but if you are going for a very early into very late game, then you can probably make that work somehow.
Yeah, it's the mysterious Challenger effect, right? It's part of why Paladins' turns after they played Challenger were just always so powerful back in the day, is that they thinned their deck of the dead draws. And, you know, Tolvir Warden has that same effect. It also has the extra gas effect because often the 1-drops you're looking for on turn 1, you're keeping Fiery Bats and Alley Cats, not necessarily keeping Jeweled Macaws.
Yeah.
So then with Tolvir Warden in the late game, you pull out a Jeweled Macaw, and then that's just extra gas. That can be another chunky beast that the Macaw gives you as well. So I'm a big fan of the cards. Chunky
beasts and beef.
There you go.
We've pretty much been talking about. We are just working out what the problem was, guys, so we'll get that sorted very, very quickly for you. We're just making sure the teams are good to go. I would imagine at this point we should be checking if we can get back into the game. I think the game might have continued. We'll have a quick check and see what's going on, so we'll check it out. It looks like it is going to be the Hunter Mirror. It might have been a regame. Yeah, it looks like they've gone for the regame. To be fair, that's the only realistic outcome if they even could reconnect fast enough. There was just 4 damage missed, and 4 damage may as well be 30 at that point in terms of the impact it can make to just miss 4 damage in the mirror.
Maths does not check out.
Be quiet, Sam.
All right.
You listen to what I mean, not what I say.
Okay, fair enough. But yeah, it looks like we are very nearly ready to get back. Although, no, it looks like we've just gone out of game again. No,
they might have just been making sure they were in a game properly.
Just
like
to make sure they have
game.
a stable connection. Yeah, I guess so.
Yep.
But it looks like we are resuming with the Hunter Mirror. Just to recap the state of the series, Italy have a 1-0 lead with Snowman picking up a win with the Quest Rogue off the back of that early Shadow Step into a quick quest, Vanish to blow out the board, and then charging damage to close out the game. He defeated Zorkthar's Shaman, brought the aggressive Shaman, should have had a good matchup against Quest Rogue, but Quest Rogue does not deal in the word should. Anything that should have a good matchup against Quest Rogue sometimes just doesn't.
Yeah, that match was definitely very cool with Snowman.
We said we weren't doing this, Raven.
No, we said we weren't making Frozen jokes. That's no
fair.
Frozen joke.
That's
This is just a generic, rubbish, cold joke.
Yeah, generic rubbish joke.
Yeah, I thought you were going to say rubbish Raven joke. Then I was waiting for it to be an aimed.
That statement is purely tautological. Any Raven joke is a rubbish joke. It'd be like saying a free gift. A gift is always free. A Raven joke is always rubbish.
I'm not impressed. Looks like we've got the game potentially starting now, and we get back to good old Hunter on Hunter action. So it's Lyra versus Rexar as well. So I'm naturally just going for Rexar. He's a good friend of mine, and I think he should win. But yeah, Diggin is just Rexar at this point. But looks like we are getting back into the game. It's going to be a regame, as we mentioned earlier. We can see from Diggin's Hunter style that there is nesting rocks in this list. So I know a good friend of mine, Nick Chipper, who likes his Hunter decks, has been playing a lot of Nesting Rock recently, which is a surprise because I've seen a lot of Hunters on ladder just not even use that card at all. But he values it quite highly.
Yeah, it's interesting. You know, if we go back to the Tolvir Warden thing we were talking about, Nesting Rock doesn't have particularly aggressive stats either for a 5-drop, but it has two things going for it that the Warden doesn't. Firstly, the taunt effect, if it activates, that means that you have a couple of small annoying minions that are pushing for 1 or 2 every turn on the board. A big 4/7 taunt to protect those small annoying minions actually nets you some damage, even though the nesting rock itself isn't very aggressive. Secondly, it's a beast. That was a Black Knight. It's a beast, so a 4/7 body is actually a fantastic target for Houndmaster. Like a 3/5 Tolvir Warden would be a lot more forgivable if you could then Houndmaster it.
Oh, the card would be significantly better, yeah. But yeah, Black Knight. I told you the Hunter can struggle versus Tom Warrior, and this is how you get around it. You play at least some form of tech. We see Deadly Shot and Black Knight. Definitely tech to beat Tom Warrior.
Yeah, absolutely. That has to be the thinking here, I imagine. And Italy and Yawgmoth are just going to go ahead and triple 1-drop or double 1-drop, but 3 individual tokens on the board. This would be an absolute blowout for a potential Hyena follow-up. And just maximizing the chances of Crackling Razormaw being able to get flexible value, maximum options as to which beast they want to adapt.
Yeah, I think, wow. Another alley cat, a timely alley cat draw, even though I imagine it might get skipped this time, although the grandmother does just die to the board anyway.
Yeah.
The thing here is we can see both hands. Razormaw this turn, Rat Pack turn after, Houndmaster turn after that.
Yes.
This is looking very, very good indeed for the Italian team here.
Now the interesting question is, what's the plan here with the adapt? Because you can... I think I like adapting one of the cats first, and then if you get +1/+1, you can value trade. If you don't get that option, you can just choose to take like +3 attack on the buffed cat, use the other 2 minions that you didn't adapt to just completely trade out the Kindly Grandmother and just have a 4/1 hitting face. +1/+1 I think is just the best option overall though, just to get the value trade, complete dominant board position at that point.
Yeah, looks like that's going to be the play. I'm always a fan of attack and just go face. But yeah, this is looking pretty good in general. The bat can go straight into the wolf version of the grandmother. Play that up, and again, just such a dominant position here. Infested wolf, not what Diggin needs at the moment. Can't even alley cat and kill command this turn to be able to just, try and battle for the board here. It's just going to be a straight up kill command. It's going from bad to worse.
And that leaves them with no answer in hand. They Animal Companion draw from Italy, but I think I like the Rat Pack pickup potentially here because you have the Houndmaster follow-up. Rat Pack's such a fantastic target to hit with that Houndmaster buff.
Yeah, the Huffer play could be good, but in general, Rat Pack is just more secure here. Houndmaster being available, and then just into Animal Companion, hero power for turn 5 anyway. Highmane again, just not what Digger needs at all. Nothing really does anything to the board. Infested Wolf is going to be as good as it's going to get, help trade away some of these minions, but you can see just from Diggin's body language here, he's just like, I'm just so far behind sorry, I need to say Kodo. Rhino on 5 next turn as well. This is kind of insane.
And
will you ever trade away?
With the buffed Rat Pack as well, that's so many 1/1s he can potentially charge next turn if there's a trade available on the board.
Do you ever consider trading here, clearing the board?
I don't mind it. I mean, I wouldn't hate it. You're in such a comfortable position that either line, but pushing another 7 right now, already at 18. Animal Companion is sometimes burst damage. Tundra Rhino is at least always another 2, and at some point Unleash the Hounds gets value. If you start adding up your hand, you're pretty close to just killing them right now.
Yeah, very much the way you play Hunter as well. Well, like I said, once you cross, there's a threshold. It changes every single game based on what's going on. But like you said, you push them past 20 when you've took 0 damage. And this is going to, oh my god, Deadly Shot into the worst of the cats. And the best target for Yawgmoth on board as well. That couldn't have been any worse for Diggen. Just going to try and battle for the board as much as possible. But, I mean, this is 8, 10, 12, 14 damage available. Oh.
4, 8, 10, 15, 17
just put it
now,
to 1
off. Yeah, you just do it. There's no way that you can die. Kill Command Hero Power Face, no healing, no way to kill you from 30 from this position. That just locks out the game. You could present an argument that because these deck lists aren't revealed, you just continue to play more normally, if you like, and continue to dominate the board. Not just in case of something weird in the opponent's deck, but I'm literally just playing the most severe of Devil's Advocates in that situation. Kill Command Face, Hero Power Face is the play. Raven, that is gimmick infringement. That is purely
Admirable and TJ.
Reserved for Admirable and TJ.
Yeah, I mean, this is the correct play 100% of the time. You put them to 1. There is no way they can dig themselves out. I mean, and this is the key turn, last turn, as you mentioned. You can push enough damage to get you far enough ahead that it's unlosable. You steamroll so much for the extra damage. The kill command was just the final nail in the coffin, and Italy take a lead against Norway, 2-0 so far. Yogma looking pretty happy about that outcome. Can't blame him. That was almost the perfect Hunter game.
Yeah, and I think you saw in both games, obviously the first one was still a little bit in the balance, but they were in a very strong position, were Italy. You saw in both games that we saw that just the faster Hunter deck was just consistently getting on board, and we saw more of Diggen's deck there in the second game. Seems to be teched more towards beating the control decks, Taunt Warrior in particular. That means coming up against the faster Hunter deck from Italy, they just weren't able to get on the board as quickly as they would have liked.
Yep, just looking at the cards we saw from both players, you can see already, imagine that instead of the mirror, both Hunter decks came up against a Taunt Warrior.
Right.
Who wins then? Digger.
Exactly.
You know, more than likely. But doesn't matter. That's all hypothetical as Yogmoth takes game number 2. And we're going to be rocking on to Turner and Zyrez. Another mirror. Warlocks as well. This is very strange.
List of things I wasn't expecting to do today. Cast a Warlock mirror is somewhere near the top. Let's call it number 3 on that list.
Cast a Warlock mirror when the other 2 picks were Rogue and Warrior.
Yes.
Crazy talk. These guys are mad. Okay, well, again, this is, I mean, fine by us, but the lack of potential Taunt Warrior, which is extremely common on ladder in tournaments at the moment, very, very powerful deck, and the lack of Rogue as well. You know, even Miracle versions, we've been seeing some incredible Miracle Rogues, again, on ladder and in tournament play. But these guys have gone for the mirror. Zyrez, a deck-building genius on the right there, and Turner getting maybe a little bit too close to his camera.
Yeah, he's just getting right up and personal, making sure that you can all see him perfectly clearly. But yes, you mentioned it. Zyrez, one of the most accomplished deck builders in Hearthstone history. Last week, we saw him bring that incredibly wacky build of Miracle Rogue that had Emerald Hive Queen, Shiv, Leroy Jenkins, etc. Not the standard Arcane Giant build that we've been seeing from most people on ladder and most people in the tournament scene as well. So I'm interested as to what potentially he might have cooked up with a Warlock deck here. There might be something just a little bit different coming out from the Norwegian side.
Yeah, and we see some of the update notes here. You know, we mentioned, we've cast Zyrez before. Yeah, wants to remind the world that Norway is not the capital of Sweden. It's its own area in itself. But also, yeah, we've talked about Zyrez's deck building, but Turner as well, number 2 in Italy. It looks like Team Italy are like 1, 2, 3, 4 in terms of HCT point earnings, which is a pretty strong team to go forward with as well, if you're going to apply that. And obviously was in the 2016 Spring Championships for Europe as well. So looking pretty good here.
Yeah, of course, that's where we get our previous experience of Turner from, is why he was the player that I definitely knew a little bit about before I started researching into this Italian team because of that championship performance. But Zyrez, I think, has to go down, for me, despite not having that HCT competitive pedigree. You know, he's someone who I've watched stream a lot. He's someone that consistently has these incredible results on ladder. And particularly still, we're only, 2 weeks or so into this new meta. New meta means that deck builders are king. And Zyrez, one of the most accomplished deck builders in the history of Hearthstone. Yeah,
and I've spoke to him, face-to-face actually multiple times at tournaments and stuff. And just hearing him talk about, like, he's one of the players where you won't quite understand his view on the game. Like, when he talks about it, you're like, oh, I didn't even cross my mind that you look at the game this way.
Sure.
But he actually does grasp it in his own way. He builds his own decks, performs quite well with them. So this is going to be interesting to me in terms of the Warlock decks, because it could just be 2 Zoo decks, and even those have different styles of builds at the moment. I don't think anyone's nailed that down at all. But, you might see Control Warlock come out somehow. Or, we see the Blood Doom Warlock being played around with in previous tournaments. But, not too common in HGG at the moment.
Yeah, Sifka Lock is a hell of a deck. It's one of those decks where you look at it initially. If you
don't understand.
If you didn't see it in a game, if someone just gave you the list of 30 cards and you look down it, one of those decks, like very much, I always use this example, but the very early builds of Reno Mage. When someone first showed me a Reno Mage deck, it just looked like a complete mess.
Just an auto-fill deck.
Yeah,
basically.
exactly. Sifka Lock is one of those, but it's had decent success for Stan Sifka himself. The other players who, practice with him, trust him, have tried to echo that success and use the same deck. Hasn't been working out too well for them so far.
Yeah, really interesting as well that Warlock has always been so dominant in the game pretty much forever. Zoo's been almost always strong. Handlock had its reign quite heavily at a point, what, year and a half ago? Maybe longer. And then, you know, obviously Reno Lock was exceptionally powerful in the last meta before this standard rotation.
The dark
times. The dark times of Reno. And yeah, so, you know, Warlock's been so powerful for so long, it's kind of weird that it feels like a tier 3, tier 4 class at the moment.
Swerve! It's a Zoo mirror.
Yep,
Never
okay.
mind.
Let's do this. Devilsaur Egg, one of the coolest cards coming out for Zoo. It's pretty much just +1 on everything that a Nerubian Egg was, except for attack, of course. 3 mana 0/3, summon a 5/5. It's going to be pretty good here, but kind of even more so, you kind of need the Argus, right?
It's too slow to have really in the early game against Zoo unless you have that guaranteed activator, and even then, like
still pretty slow.
Keeping Devilsaur Egg and Pterodax in your opening hand just seems really sketchy as well. You need to push for 1-drops. That already didn't see the full mulligan, but looks like a much better hand. Yes, oof. That is in fact a much better hand for Turner and Italy, but the 1-drops are coming out to play from both sides here. Xerez, though, has the initiative of going first, which again, similar to the Hunter mirror. Aggro mirrors, you do want to be the one taking initiative and dropping first onto the board.
Yeah, really interesting as well that Turner's opening 4 cards without the coin and run was effectively 7 1-drops in 4 cards.
Wait, what? Oh, with Villager as well.
To a certain extent. To a certain extent. It's just kind of funny that there's like that much value from 4 cards. It's kind of insane. But you know, these decks are definitely interesting ones. We see Leroy used here for Zyra. I think he just loves Leroy. He just loves that card. He always plays it in Rogue, no matter what.
Yeah.
I'd be amazed if it wasn't in his Quest Rogue for some reason. Just because he likes it that much.
I want to pay 5 mana for my 5/5 charger instead of 1. Yeah.
Maybe.
Both players now going off with the Fireflies, and Firefly, such a huge card for Zoo. It's a huge card for a lot of decks, but it's so along the lines of that kind of possessed villager effect that you were talking about. The idea of Zoo, when you boil it down, is you play cheap, efficient stuff onto the board, you buff it, you trade into your opponent's stuff more efficiently than they can, and then over time, you have more stuff than they do. That is the very just simple Zoo 101, and things like Firefly just continually generate more resources to you, and a 1/2 in Zoo is more than a 1/2 in any other deck. Less so now because of the loss of power overwhelming, but still, your Direwolf Alphas, your Defender of Argus, whatever buff effects you're playing, those make your 1/2s more powerful than just the mere sum of its stats.
Yeah, I think the lack of power overwhelming, Abusive Sergeant being nerfed, and Peddler going away has really had a huge impact on the power of Zoo. Imagine Zoo now if those cards are available and you had to card like Firefly.
No, I don't want to.
That's a pretty reasonable answer, because it would be terrifying indeed and would definitely be top tier. We do see Zyra's using Abusive Sergeant though, so he's going to get some work done now.
That Abusive Sergeant is UC.
Yeah, it's going to be really nice. These Flame Elementals from the Fireflies just going to overrun Turner on the board, and Defender of Argus is 1 turn away at the moment. Voidwalker, a reasonable pickup. But again, there's already, 2 minions on board that can trade into Voidwalker and still live, never mind what Cyrus draws.
Yeah, and you see Zyra is quite deliberately playing the 1/2s over the Possessed Villager, because the Possessed Villager can actually be value traded to an extent by a 1/2, whereas the 1/2s trading into other 1/2s is much, much more difficult. He'd rather have these higher health minions on the board, because he knows Firefly is now a common card he's going to come up against. Voidwalkers are still yet to come down, so the 1/2s just have more valuable trades available to them.
Yeah, no true surprise there, the run going for Living Spores. +1/+1 is reasonable. Untargetable doesn't make much sense in a Warlock mirror because it's all minion trading, but the 2 1/1 plants you get from the Death Rod is actually pretty huge here. Defender of Argus on demand for Zyra's here. And you can see Turner already just like, oh my god, this is going from bad to worse. All these value trades, these minions are somehow still alive, and this is looking very, very bad for Turner indeed.
Doomguard is a big whiff as well. It's a great card to have on 5. It's a great card to have when you have the initiative. It's a terrible card to have when you're just looking for some gas to drop on this turn 4, and when you're facing down a wide board of little tiny minions like this, it's not efficient for Doomguard to be able to deal with this board state.
Yeah, not even close, and it looks like it's going to have to be just a life tap from Turner, I think, at this point. It's on 29, so his health is okay.
He can trade an Argus the 2 1/1s that come out if he wanted to. It's not great, but it might just fight for the board enough to allow Doomguard to swing back the next turn.
Yeah. It's really tough, isn't it?
I mean, you know, that play is like a solid 5 out of 10. The question is, if you life tap, are you finding a 6 or 7 out of 10 play as the alternative?
Especially because the Fireflies don't, you know, they actually deal with a lot of the minions on 1 health anyway. So this 2 attack on these plants doesn't matter that much on the board. There is the Defender of Argus on there and the Firefly, but in general, just not going to be too impactful here. Ravenous Pterodax is going to be drawn for next turn, and there is plenty of options, especially with the Possessed Villager coming down for Zyres, no doubt, this turn.
So Direwolf on the right-hand side between these two, and then play Possessed Villager on the extreme right, allows him to pick up 2 value trades this turn instead of 1. He's actually just choosing to respect the trade. That plays around exactly Doomguard, the trade he made. It's often quite weird to see a Taunt minion making a trade that's going to happen for the opponent. That's just one of the benefits of Taunt, is that you don't have to make those kind of trades. But he's playing around Doomguard specifically here by not allowing the Doomguard to pick up the value trade on the Taunt minion, and then the 2/3 gets a value trade into the Direwolf Alpha.
Yeah, really nice play here from Zyres, and Ravenous Pterodax combined the live tap, potentially, then Leroy on top. You can almost already see how the game will be played out here, as long as this Pterodax does not like completely whiff on its adapts.
Does it ever?
Well, that's what I mean. With 2 choices,
right?
You're even plus attack, right?
Yeah.
Just plus attack, like 1 beats Doomguard, and then also just punches them in the face a lot. And then you have a second choice, which worst one is Taunt, but then anything else is good. So you're feeling pretty confident. Plus attack Wind Fury is the dream, though.
If he can get it down on an empty board, which he can do here, then yes, absolutely, though that kind of stat line is the dream. But going to trade off the Possessed Villager. I imagine the token is still going to get eaten here. Darkshire Councilman is appealing, but I'm imagining we're going to see the Pterodax here instead.
Right, would have already played it as well to gain the +1 from the token trade for the Villager. So it's okay, it's going to be the Pterodax going on the left. Nom, plus health, reasonable, and
the speed!
Yeah, that APM, and now suddenly a 6/8 on the board. Well, 5/8, but it'll gain against the +1 from the Direwolf anyway. And like we said, there's now Leroy, Patches, Councilman. This is all falling apart for Team Italy here.
Yeah, the Patches draw are obviously not ideal for Norway, but it also means they haven't drawn the Bloodsail Corsair early, which isn't really too much of an effective card in this matchup anyway. Of course, playing Bloodsail Corsair and summoning Patches for free would have been preferable, but if you're going to draw Patches, I'm sure Norway will appreciate that it's coming out in a game where they're already almost certainly a lock to win.
Yeah, there's just 19 available on the board and hand this turn. Obviously, Direwolf dying is going to change that. It just doesn't matter anymore at this point. You can actually just play Leroy into the Doomguard and then trade Patches in the 1/1 away.
You could play
guard the Pterodax.
You could play Leroy and value trade the Doomguard with the Pterodax.
True, yeah.
Hit face with the Leroy and then do the same thing.
Yeah, true. That makes more sense. I'll give you that one. Oh, even a Voidwalker now. All the options available.
Councilman just coming down. This means 6. Yeah, there's going to be, what, 8, 9, 10, 11 power on board the next turn with the Leroy coming from hand. That's 17 plus another 1 buff to the Darkshire Councilman. So much damage coming through. Pterodax with no minions in play. Big whiff. A little bit better still than Defender of Argus in that regard because it plays down as a 4/4 instead of a 2/3. But still significantly less than ideal. He tapped looking for a 1-drop there, I think, just trying to be able to generate...
plus health and taunt.
Right, a big Divine Shielded taunt plus 1/1s, health plus taunt, those kind of combinations. No such luck, though. Ravasor, Run, and Pterodax are both cards that are better when playing with friends, and Turner and Italy, sadly, have no friends right now.
No, this is... I had a few jokes there. Seem a bit harsh. But yeah, definitely...
Cut loose, Raven. Come over to the dark side.
Never.
It's warm over here. We have
God, it's just the Vader and Luke scene, isn't it?
We have all the best toys, I swear.
Okay, I'll take your word for it for now. But yeah, the Pterodax in the run, definitely not great here. And, you know, you can see the sort of... You can't see his mouth, but you can see the shakes of the head and the movements to show that Turner's just talking it over with his teammates. But this is probably just let's play one more turn. It's probably going to be another couple of minutes, and then we lose. You may as well see what happens. But this is going from bad to worse. There's the Bloodsail Corsair that we talked about earlier. But I believe it's just game at this point.
It's 18-19 with the Bloodsail Corsair buffing as well in total. I mean, it is just game.
Yeah, but lethal.
It is not lethal, no. This will do nicely, though. Almost certainly a guaranteed setup for the next turn. Lethal represented on board, plus 6 damage from Leroy in hand to push through a taunt if they even needed to. Defender of Argus picked up. They can make a 3-3 taunt, but that's never going to get the job done.
Yeah, really interested to see this Zoo mirror because I always wonder about how good Zoo actually is at the moment. And it's hard to tell because Zyres looks super dominant in the mirror, right? You know, if this was any other deck, how good would it have actually, how well would it have actually performed? So we'll maybe get to see that in some more matches today if anyone else picks Warlock, but this one just kind of got dominant from the start and it was very reminiscent of Zoo in its history, right, in the mirrors. Anyone who gets ahead normally stays ahead. There's not really a lot of combat mechanics for Zoo.
Yeah, there was a couple of points, you know, when we were at peak implosion frustration, that was a time where maybe the Zoo mirror swung a little bit more than we used to. But in most iterations of Zoo, in most metagames, the person who gets a significant lead on the board come turn 3, turn 4 is usually just going to snowball to victory. And Norway, their lead on turn 3, turn 4 was enormous. They'd spread across, I think, 5 different bodies on the board of 1-1s and 1-2s, and that's just an insurmountable advantage in the Zoo mirror.
Yeah, and this is really interesting to me from Italy, as I don't understand how lethal on board through a play is ever a play you want to waste your time making, but it's fine. Italy are going down one game there from Norway, so Norway's going to be 1-2 versus them now as Zyres keeps the dreams alive for Team Norway. Italy could have 3-0'd it, but in the Zoom era, it wasn't meant to be.
It also means that Zyres goes down as one of our first 2-0 players in the tournament. Not too many teams have played twice yet. Amongst those, I'm not sure if any individual players have picked up 2 wins.
Don't talk to me about Korea.
But I remember very specifically Zyres picking up a win on that clutch Leroy top deck off the Shiv with his strange build of Miracle Rogue. He's now followed that up with a Zoo win as well. So his personal record is 2-0 in this tournament.
Yeah, definitely someone you want on your team.
I would. I'd take him.
Plugs away wins. I can't argue with that. But yeah, you know, he's going to keep the team in here as well. Now we're going to see that actually Diggin is the ace match and Snowman is the ace match as well for later. But that's all reliant on Hunter Ace beating Inovan, sorry. And it's going to be the Paladin versus the Priest. And Hunter Ace not going for the Druid this time. And Inovan shying away from the Mage, which we've seen to be sort of becoming a theme throughout the tournament. Maybe everyone's expecting each other to play the Freeze Mage and there's fear of some tech, spattering of tech across the deck list as well.
Spattering. So. Great word. I like it.
Thanks.
A spattering of tech. Yeah, I think if people were watching the behavior of teams yesterday, watching the tech choices of teams yesterday, they will have seen that there is a lot of Freeze Mage hate going around. A lot of people have planned for it. We've seen Crazed Alchemists. We've seen lists being tilted towards the aggression. So with that information now coming into day 2, of course, the lists will have already been submitted, but you can still adapt your strategy in-game and in the pick and ban phase based on what you've seen on day 1. And in that case, maybe Freeze Mage on day 2 is a scarier proposition than it was on day 1.
Yeah, pretty reasonable as well. And that's just, again, another intricacy in terms of as a week goes by, the differences by day. You can check out day 1 strategies in terms of pick order and what clashes against what. And you can see how that develops going forward. You can see it was Inovan there for Italy. And Hunter Ace, I believe, an extremely young player. I think 16 or 17 maximum. He's going to be playing.
This was the guy we couldn't think of yesterday when we were adding to the Prodigy list.
Yeah,
yes,
it was.
There you go.
Yeah, he's a very, very young player, but a very good player. I believe he's attended DreamHack as well with a decent performance there. But looking forward to see him play and see what he's got to give here. It's going to be Paladin versus Priest, so we're going to get into it. It could be, I imagine just Murloc Paladin at this point. It's what everyone's playing.
Is that what we're calling that deck, though?
Well,
that's the thing.
The problem is, if you say mid-range Paladin, the question is always, does it have the Murlocs?
Right.
Because some actually don't.
Right. And even like if you call it, Murloc mid-range Paladin, there's still questions like, well, does it have Doomsayer? Does it have Pyro Equality? Are those mid-range cards? But we will get back to the matchup in the meantime. We can take a look at Inovan and Hunter Ace. As I said, Hunter Ace, elite group of teenage Hearthstone prodigies, George C, Amnesiac, a few others that are on that list. Hunter Ace as well at the princely age of 16 years old, currently one of the top 25 HCT point owners in Europe. But Inovan, no surprise, same team as the rest of his players, and wow, look at that, his favorite Italian food is pizza. What do you know?
I can't blame him. I agree.
And if yesterday was anything to go by, players and teams who have food facts on their bios have done pretty darn well.
Yeah, maybe it's a secret nod to the true favored teams are the ones with the food information in their bios, and we'll see if it plays out this time, as Italy do only need to win one game, and Norway have to win all this one and the ace match as well. So Diggen might have to play again and take it for Norway, but so far, you know, Priest versus Paladin, if they're the decks we are presuming they are, how do you think that plays out?
Well, I got a cheeky look, and I'm pretty sure it is a mid-rangey Paladin of sorts from the Paladin side. I saw Quality and a Primordial Drake in their test game mulligan. And yeah, War Leader gives away that it is going to be something along the lines of what we're seeing as the standard list these days. Early game Murloc board control into just insane late game power with your rewards from Stonehill Defender alongside Spike Ridge Steeds, Tyrians, etc, etc, etc. Priest, still not full information based on what we're seeing here. The Pyromancer is the one nod that this probably isn't Dragon Priest. It's some kind of draw-heavy Lyra Priest or combo Priest. So that means it's probably not just going to be a straight-up value battle. It's actually going to be possibly the Priest playing the aggressor in this matchup, which is a little bit strange to say, particularly if there's a Divine Spirit in a Fire combination in this deck, which there, I'd say usually is, not always. There's a couple of lists that don't play that as a win condition, but if it is in there, it's going to be Priest looking to get the killing done in this matchup, which is not a phrase I've done too often in my multiple years of Hearthstone casting experience.
Yeah, we see the Valford Inquisitor now means that, yes, this is just, you know, what looks to be, even with the Ivory Knight here, the atypical, popular Murloc list at the moment.
Did you say atypical?
With the typical.
Okay. I think it's like, you say atypical, like
singular
typical.
yeah.
You need to be very careful of saying that, because it means the exact opposite of what you want to say.
A single, the single typical.
Right.
Whatever. Paladin list. And we do see this does look like a combo with Blade Masters. It looks like it is going to be the Divine Spirit in a fire.
Most likely,
because a lot of the times when you don't play the in a fire list, there's no reason to play a Blade Master. There are better cards, right?
Yeah, most of the time, yeah. And this hand is looking explosive. It is missing one piece of just an absolute massive wombo combo, which is that Northshire Cleric. If he can get all this together, Pyro, proc it once to injure the board, Cleric and Circle to just refresh and draw that into an entirely new hand. That is how you win games with Priest.
Difference between me and you. The one piece I'm thinking about is an Inner Fire. Coin Blade Master. Oh no, Blade Master on 3. Circle of Healing, Coin Powered Shield, and then set up for an Inner Fire punch in the face.
And then Outdoor Peacekeeper feels bad.
Hey, I'm just saying. Look.
Yeah, all right.
Options, options. But yeah, in general, we were talking about the matchup. Is Priest actually just kind of runs out of ways to deal with the sheer value, the late game value alone that Paladin can put out. There is no Entomb anymore, which is one of the key ones to deal with Tyrion, especially with cards like Hydrologist, means that, you know, Redemption and Getaway Kodo can get even more impact value. You know, imagine Shadow of Death and Tyrion into Getaway Kodo. Here, have a free Ashbringer.
Yes.
You can play Tyrion again, which is one of the ways, as Paladin, you actually win the controlly late game matches.
Yeah, I've seen some Priest lists even that aren't, you know, Humongous Razor Leaf Silence Priest, just teching in copies of Silence effects. Just, you know, a single 0-mana Silence. Sometimes the 5/5, whose name I've forgotten, Cabal Songstealer? Is that right?
Yes.
Just to deal with those kind of problems, because without Sylvanas available to you now as Priest, and without Entomb, those are two of your big answers to huge problematic minions like Tyrion gone. You know, Sylvanas, Shadow of Death, steal your Tyrion, ruin all your fun. and just entomb your Tyrion, steal it that way, and ruin all your fun. There is a theme with Priest in that they like to ruin all your fun. Priest players as well take a sick, twisted joy in stealing all your stuff and playing with your cards instead of their own.
Yep, new fact for the day, Sotl's middle name is Anduin, so all that starts to make sense now.
Wait, what?
Priest players and priests enjoy ruining people's fun. Does that sound like someone we know, guys? I think so. But now getting back to the game and not allowing Sotl to argue with me, Aldor Peacekeeper is going to be drawn for Italy. And is this... I guess it's not because of the Vial thing to develop more Murlocs. It's just to find hero power paths. But you could just play the Aldor Peacekeeper on curve.
I have never been that insulted. That is
That's
the
just
worst
untrue.
thing
That's just
anyone has ever said to me.
Called you Anduin?
Yeah.
Good to know.
Yes.
Going to speak to production. When your name pops up again, it's going to be Sotl.
Anyway, what was your question? I absolutely wasn't listening.
There's the only option here is on curve Aldor Peacekeeper, which sometimes is the play. But with the Valfin hero power, actually just developing more Murlocs is actually pretty reasonable. In case there's a War Leader draw next turn, Gentle Megasaur as well can suddenly turn those Murlocs into absolute demons.
Yeah,
there's still Murlocs.
There's a good chance there are 4 extremely strong top decks for you next turn if you just develop another Murloc. And of course, from Italy's side, they have no perspective yet on whether or not they are facing an Inner Fire Priest. If they're facing an Inner Fire Priest, those Aldor Peacekeepers are key.
Ooh, almost game-winning, right?
Right, they can be. You know, normally in this matchup, the Priest will be forced to respect that and almost be looking to OTK with their Inner Fire effects, because they know those Aldors will be being held. The difference is, sometimes they don't have that luxury. They just have to make a push with a 7-7 or a 6-6, something less ideal. Just try and Inner Fire some value onto the board and go that way. In those kind of cases, Aldor Peacekeeper can be absolutely crucial.
Yeah, I think it's a lot of the time you see like a big minion with a powered shield.
Yeah.
Pass. Because Aldor it, sure. Then Inner Fire, or then Divine Spirit Inner Fire comes down for a big punch. So yeah, completely agree. It's going to be the Pyromancer into Powered Shield now, though. Going to help clear off these Murlocs as turn 4 is Megasaur turn. And that, again, as we said, could be absolutely back-breaking very early on. And that was Murloc War Leader. That would have been huge. Still is good. Means that this Valfin can trade into the buffed Pyro. And you definitely want to get rid of that. So I do like this play. There's an answer for it in the form of the Shadow Word Pain, though, on Trace attack.
Cabal Talon Priest picked up now, meaning that they are starting to get some of those methods of generating huge amounts of health on their minions, where they can start asking that kind of question that you were just talking about, with just, big health minions on the board. Are you scared of this enough to Aldor it preemptively? If so, I'll punish it for you afterwards. I'm sure Italy have enough experience and know how to not fall into that trap, but the question can now begin to be asked over the next couple of turns anyway.
Yeah, it's very tricky here, because there's even an option as, other than a Megasaur this turn, which doesn't do too much on one Murloc, really, there's a chance you could actually just go for Blade Master Circle if you just want to get a big guy on the board and ask that question already without overcommitting to it. I guess True Silver Champion is the punish for that.
Yes.
Without an additional health buff, so definitely something to think about. Just feels like Shadow Word Pain hero power feels very slow against a very board-focused deck in the form of the Paladin.
Yeah, the question really is how long are you willing to wait to find that Northshire Cleric? Because yes, he committed a Pyro already. He's found the second one though, so the Pyro combination with Cleric is still available. Yeah. And again, it is huge to what is essentially a fairly combo-based Priest deck to be able to make that kind of thing happen. And I do like this decision to kind of bail out on that plan, just start generating some board presence. They know do Norway that they can't wait for too long here to get themselves into this game, because if they just sit back and wait and allow Paladin to develop freely, those big late game threats that we were talking about earlier, they don't have clean answers to them. They are just going to force them out of the game very quickly.
Yeah, and I think it's in a very good position to deal with this Blade Master. They can Aldor it this turn, hero power. Next turn, they either Kodo it, or if it gets buffed up, they'll just play Tarim.
Excellent point.
Yeah, it's like they have like a backup plan for worst case scenario, because by playing the Aldor and hero power in, the Blade Master, if it receives buffs, can probably only deal with one minion.
You get a little tickle though, right? You wanna bump into it?
Nah, leave it.
Interesting.
Leave it, yeah, smoke him. Smoke him.
I guess he plays around Holy Nova a little. Yeah, he plays around Holy Nova completely by not making the trade. If he makes the trade, puts his Murloc down to 3-2, the Blade Master can trade into the one remaining 3-3, and then Holy Nova would blow them out. So this is a smart decision from Italy.
Yeah, this is really nice, having that comfortable spot to play Tarim or go for the Kodo as well. Shadow with Pain coming down on the wall either. Oh. Just... I'm sorry.
Are you alright?
No.
Do you need a minute,
This
Raven?
is a
If you need a minute, I can cover this.
Yeah, I'm just gonna have.
Okay.
Go.
Kodo value does also excite me. Kodo Baggins coming storming out of the Shire right now and devouring a 1-9.
Yeah, he's definitely equipped a Stinger going on there, Conan Orc as well, so very thematic. Apart from Kodo looks a little bit different than he did in the film. Ken, though, coming out from Italy, it could be not to actually playing a N'Zoth in this deck as well. Although
possible.
even N'Zoth, it's really weird as well. N'Zoth Paladin pretty much only has Ken and Tyrion, and just say, well, that's just enough to, if I bring this back, this is really hard to deal with.
Well, they have Ken and 3 Tyrions, right?
Oh,
they still play
Stonehill.
Stonehill Defender.
Of course. What was I thinking?
Yes.
Of course. Elise, nice card. We've talked a lot about Elise, how much we like it and the actual long-term value, but Huntrace is just kind of, guessing off the list, running out of ways to deal with a built-up board. One circle has already been used, so the Alkanized Circle to clear off a lot of a board is actually, very slim now because there's only one circle left.
Mm-hmm.
This could be tough. I think you might have to just drop maybe not. Okay. Huntrace disagrees. I wonder if you just have to drop Elise to just go for it at this point. It trades well versus the Kodo. Yes, and the Town Priest would live training into the 3/3 anyway.
Oh boy.
Kodo Baggins found a mount.
Spike Ridge Steed, while you have minions in play, is one of the most crushingly powerful cards printed in the new expansion. Of course it's dead when you're behind, which is why we're seeing 1 being played in a lot of decks as opposed to 2. You just want more solidly consistent things. Ivory Knight is one of the cards that's competing with it, as you see on the left-hand side. And with Ken in there as well, I don't imagine this list from Italy has room for 2 of these cards. But in this kind of position where you do have minions to land them on, they're extremely powerful.
Yeah, I wonder how good Ken is over Spike Ridge at this point as well, because Ken is just kind of a Spike Ridge in itself. He was the OG of just, death rattle into a big minion anyway. And it's just, I think, more awkward for Huntrace to deal with. Because if the Spike Ridge C comes down, worst case scenario, Shadow of Death, Shadow of Pain.
1 Pain has been used though, and Shadow of Death is actually cut from some of the priest lists.
Oh, really?
Most commonly, the Humongous Razor Leaf Silence build doesn't play Shadow of Death because they have all those silence effects for huge minions potentially anyway.
Okay, did go for the Spike Ridge Steed, so 5/8 with a Death Rattle into a 6/2 taunt. Sorry, 2/6 taunt. 6/2 taunt would be hilarious.
6/2 taunt.
Get him.
Would be one of the most bizarre cards they've ever printed.
So it wouldn't surprise me it being a card at some point.
There you go. Yeah.
I got what did I get?
Cool story.
I got the Sabertooth the 8/2 from something onto the board. What was it? Something happened. I got it straight onto the board. It was amazing. But yeah, it's not quite 6/2 taunt, 8/2 stealth. A little bit better. But there's my story finished. I know it was an exciting one.
I have a prediction that there is a certain emote going on in Twitch chat right now.
Does it begin with a C?
It does.
Okay,
yeah.
I thought so.
Careful. Twitch chat is saying something else.
Oh, okay, sorry. These 2 minions on the board now do trade into the first half of this Kodo. Now Italy can answer with a Elise of their own. But Tyrone is pretty good.
Now they didn't see a death land on this 5/8 Kodo as well. I mean, Tyrion is looking pretty appealing in this situation.
Yeah, this is the kind of insane power that the early Murlocs can give you, is that they stall, or just win the early game. If they don't, Tyrion, Elise, Tarim, Ken Bloodhoof, Spike Ridge Steed.
Ken,
it's like,
apparently.
Dropping Ken, so much value. Like, how do you even deal with this? It's going to go for the Drake instead, though. I mean, the Drake's another pain for the priest to deal with here, and Radiant Elemental. I think this is the main issue I have with this deck. It's so reliant on so many cards coming together as one.
Yes.
Means that, well, what do you do when you don't draw them? You just lose.
Well, I mean, a lot of boxes have to be checked before this deck truly draws dead, because if you don't find any of the crucial, spell combo pieces that you do need, you have shadow visions to help you dig for them. So, not only do you have to draw dead in terms of directly getting the answers, you also have to draw dead in terms of not hitting shadow visions. And then if none of that has happened, you always have the Cleric Pyro Circle engine to just fall back on, draw 6 or 7 cards in one turn. Then you have got some of those cards in your hand. So what we're watching here from Norway is a game where none of those things have happened, and that's an incredibly low percentage of the time.
Yeah. So there's an option here where there's Wild Pyro, Holy Nova. Doesn't even need it. Maybe not. Maybe you could Radiant Elemental. But you can Holy Nova and then actually Potion of Madness on the 2/6 to trade it in, help chip some damage on the Volcanic Drake. Doesn't kill it, of course, but does a good chunk of damage at least. And you kind of need to get value from these potions, right? Like, what are you waiting for in terms of
Look at Hunter Ace's body language right now. You can feel this slipping away, and Norway can feel the series slipping away in general. This Priest game, as we just mentioned, is just not lined up for him. And look at the value that's left that he has to try and fight his way through.
There has to be Stonehills in the deck, right?
I mean, if you're playing this much value, maybe this is their thinking. Is like, you know what? I could play Stonehill, but it's a little slow to play on turn 3 in the first place. What if I just put a bunch of more ridiculous value in my deck anyway, and then I
just play the cards I would want from Stonehill, you know, as opposed to actually play them themselves. But you can't get triple Tyrion.
You can't.
Or quadruple, potentially, as well.
With a getaway Kodo as well, yeah. Just an embarrassment of riches. Just no idea how they want to just continue to fight onto this board because they're so far ahead. Elise is just another huge threat. Tyrion is another huge threat. Cairn would be a nightmare for Priest to deal with. They really just had to shut their eyes and pick an option at that point.
Apart from Tyrion.
Everything was so powerful except, yeah.
Tyrion's probably the one time you don't play him. Yeah, Tyrion looking good here and just too many threats indeed. Priest of the Feast. Excuse me, could help a little bit. Can actually proc the shield on the Tyrion with a Potion of Madness, but then what? Like, nothing.
Yeah. Kill the 2/3 and either put some damage onto the Drake or clear the shield is the best use of Potion, as you said. But beyond that, not a lot going on. And again, still no Shadow Visions, still no Acolytes that are in the deck sometimes. Lyra as well could have turned some of this dead junk in their hand into something impactful.
Well, as well, you look Radiant Elemental, Lyra, and then suddenly 2 0 mana potions, coin, you can start to do silly things, which is when I think the deck is its strongest. But until then...
Is there anything? So Pyro, Potion of Madness, Holy Nova would allow them... I mean, they're going to be killing the 2/3 that they would Potion of Madness with the Pyro, Holy Nova anyway, so that doesn't even really achieve anything. I think they're just going to go with Priest of the Feast here, kill the 2/3, which is the best they can do, and just take their little bit of healing, distract Italy for now with the Priest of the Feast on the board, functioning as well as kind of a 3/6 taunt in this situation, because pushing damage past it never really makes a great deal of sense unless you have direct lethal set up, because they're almost certainly going to bounce back from it, especially this build of Priest, if you leave a Priest of the Feast alive on the board.
I'm kind of surprised we're not seeing I'm pretty sure it's still in rotation. A pint-sized potion? Surprised I've not seen that played in this deck.
It's still in the game, I think.
Yeah, I think so. Because how sick would that be? Pint-sized potion would be nuts.
What are you combining it with, though? You want to play, like...
Potion of Madness?
Potion of Madness, yeah, I guess.
Could trade it off the Tyrion, right?
Sure.
In some instances. But yeah, you know, I'm not saying it's game-winning, but you're using a lot of cheap spells anyway. It becomes really, cheap with Radiant Elemental, and it can cause these double Potion of Madness everyone's running to be more useful against control decks as well. We're only talking about this because Italy can again just close their eyes and probably just pick a card, go face.
Yeah, the only frustrating thing for them is that, all of their high-value cards have cost 6 or above so far. They haven't been able to make a double 4-drop turn, a double 5-drop turn. It has just been 1 card per turn.
Only Tyrion into Cairn.
Right, which, I'm trying to find the silver lining, and that's about the one thing they've had going for them so far. Double Holy Nova now in hand. Potion of Madness coin double Holy Nova is available, but that's only doing 5 to one of the taunt minions. Doing 5 to the Cairn would be relatively useful, but they can't get that Potion of Madness 1/1 to get through to the 4/5. So even then, it's just not looking great. Is the Pyro play any good again this turn? Still doesn't deal with the 4/8.
If they had pint size, they could steal Cairn, trade it into the Tyrion.
Be quiet.
Steal Tyrion, trade it into the
Well, some feeling it might have rotated, actually.
You think?
We'll find out.
Yeah.
Someone's
already let us know.
I'm sure. Yeah,
probably cast a misplay. But yeah, it's still looking grim. There's not a lot. can even battle for here. There's still Tarim, there's still Elise, there's a true silver champion, there's value from the Ivory Knight as well. You can just consecrate him in the face for the fun of it next turn if you really want, and still be in a strong position. So this is looking like too much of an uphill climb here for Hunter Ace.
Yeah, Hunter Ace and Norway just taking every second they can here to try and find an optimal solution to this. But this might just be the last turn they have in this game. 23 they're going up to now. There's still 14 power on board, 18 from True Silver, 20 from Consecration, but there could just be a board state developed here that is going to force the concede from Norway on the following turn unless something absolutely spectacular happens.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure Italy could True Silver into True Silver, then swing and still win the game at this point with a Murloc hero power to finish up the turn. I wouldn't mind seeing Ivory Knight now. See if you can get Blaster Kings or something. Sure. Just finish up the game quick. You can still play a True Silver champion. You know, oh, you skip the Murloc. Who cares at this point? Here we go. Any options? Oh,
Spike Ridge, Avenging Wrath.
Adapt Wind Fury on Tyrion Go.
Would be, what, 6, 12, 16, 20? Still wouldn't be lethal this turn. I mean, Avenging Wrath is 8 extra damage as opposed to the 6 that would be anyway. You can't cast it this turn. Since it's not lethal, it's just more damage over time anyway.
But Wind Fury Tyrion, though,
is a compelling argument, I will admit. You have swayed me with your logic and reason, Raven.
As always, as always. It's going to be the Spike Ridge Steed just to pretty much just drill a final nail into the coffin as it wasn't already there. Maybe a few extra nails just to make sure. Because there is just no way out here for Norway. No way out here. There we go.
Hey, look.
That's what I'm going to use in the future.
Those are some cards that we'd have liked to have had in our hand for several turns this game, says Hunter Ace.
Yeah, this is what's supposed to happen like turn 3 or 4, right?
Exactly. Hunter Ace resumes standard thinking stance. Deciding whether to throw out the Pyromancer first here, I think, is the decision that they're looking for.
Ungoro.
Finds the Ungoro back.
Now he needs coin, Deathwing. As if Deathwing was in Ungoro.
Yeah,
these are some of the cards he would need to win this game at this point, and even then it's going to be tough. We're going to open the pack though. We're going to have some fun.
Legendary.
Ooh.
Razor Petal Volley is 3 cheap spells combined, but they have no way to buff the health of the Pyro. They can Razor Petal, they can Pyro cast 1 spell, then Holy Nova to heal the Pyro for 1, then cast a 3rd spell. That's the best they can possibly do. Yeah.
Not going to be enough. They can effectively play a Senjin, but heal.
All right, they found it. They found it. Hunter Ace sees the lines.
Hero Power Emote.
There you go.
Works every time, and Italy are going to be able to take it 3-1 over Norway. Again, you know, what you'd have to say on paper is an upset, but Italy played great. Completely solid play from those guys.
They did, and they got, mainly their deck list just lined up very well. Yep. We saw the Hunter Mirror line up in the sense that they had brought a more aggressive Hunter to be able to get onto the board quicker against those kind of mirror matches, whereas Norway had gone towards the anti-control, anti-taunt warrior kind of Hunter, and they were just a little bit slow to get in there, had a Black Knight in their hand for the entire game that was just a complete dead draw. That was a big advantage for them. Xerez fought back in the Zoo Mirror, complete blowout game, just the exact opposite, had the much faster start, but then that was the slowest one-sided beatdown I have seen in a long time from Paladin against Priest.
I'm going to keep asking this question. Someone show me what this Priest deck is supposed to do. I only see it do games like that, and I don't understand at all.
Tic Tac, if you're out there, can you shout at this man for me, please?
Just show me. I'm not saying it's bad or good. Right. I need someone to prove this to me, but we can see Italy there with their 3-1 victory over Norway. They've got to be feeling fantastic. That was their first match in the group as well. So strong performance in Norway. Again, you know, player caliber, you know, Xerez, Diggen, you know, it's not enough at this point.
It's not. I mean, it was a solid performance, and you can't really say they did anything wrong. I mean,
no, that's true.
We commented several times that, you know, Hunter Ace was just sat on an incredibly low percentage draw from his Priest deck in that situation. It's so rare that you're just not going to hit Norsha Cleric. You're not going to hit Shadow Visions. You're not going to hit what other card draw engine. And then outside of that, you're just not going to hit any of the cards that you're looking for off those cards anyway. So Norway will be back, I'm sure. They do have the security blanket of that opening week quick win against Finland, which still puts them in a decent fighting position in the group. But as one of the few teams now that have played twice, they have dropped to a 4-5 overall game record, which will come into play if their match record is tied.
Yeah, so not too great at all, but definitely not terrible. It's only match 2 for those guys, so it looks like we're going to be getting ready for the next match, which is going to be Greece versus Hungary. So don't go anywhere, guys. We're going to go for a short break, and we'll be right back.
We're almost there. Quiet down, everyone. This is not like any of our previous expeditions. This will be far more ambitious. We're stepping into a land of primordial wonder. Infused with astonishing elemental energies. The plant life here holds very unusual properties. So don't touch anything. And while you may be excited to see the local fauna, you might want to make sure they don't see you. Because their powers of adaptation are devastating. Make no mistake, we will be tested at every turn. But if we stay on our guard, we might just survive. Now then, are you ready? Then let's journey into Ongoro Crater.